Like, whatever, it's a message to all the people out there that whatever their dream is, that they should never give up.
I don't wanna die. I sometimes wish I'd never been born.
She stepped onto the stage with no shoes, no fear, and a voice that didn't belong to a 7-year-old. It belonged to an era long gone, resurrected in the most unexpected form. Her name was Angelina Jordan, and in mere seconds, she shattered expectations on America's Got Talent. The champions, not just with her rendition of Queen, Bohemian Rhapsody, but with a presence that haunted the judges and gripped the world. People weren't just amazed, they were confused. How could a child so young channel the soul of a jazz legend with such eerie precision? Simon Cowell didn't flinch, his eyes narrowed in disbelief. Heidi Klum slammed the golden buzzer like it was destiny itself. But behind Angelina's hypnotic voice and angelic appearance lay a heartbreaking truth that most viewers never knew. Her barefoot performances weren't just a gimmick, they were a vow, a tribute, a silent cry for a world she refused to forget. Angelina wasn't just another prodigy. She was a girl carrying the weight of a promise, the loss of innocence, and a growing discomfort with the spotlight that kept trying to define her. This is not just the story of a golden buzzer moment. This is the emotional unraveling of a child whose life was anything but ordinary, whose pain was buried beneath every note, and whose journey is still misunderstood by millions. And as her voice echoed across global stages, a darker silence began to grow behind the scenes, a silence that would soon consume everything. But to understand where it all began, we must first return to the moment when the world met a barefoot girl with a vintage soul and a voice too big for her tiny frame. It was a scene straight out of a dream, or maybe a time machine. A small girl stood on stage in Norway's Got Talent 2014 wearing a floral dress, her tiny feet planted firmly on the cold ground. Then she sang not Katy Perry, not Taylor Swift, but Billie Holiday's Gloomy Sunday, a song so mournful and intense that even seasoned vocalists tread lightly around it. But Angelina didn't just sing it, she embodied it. Her voice didn't waver, it floated. And audiences were left in stunned silence before erupting in disbelief. It wasn't just talent, it was something else entirely. News outlets across Europe started calling her the reincarnation of a jazz icon. Viral videos exploded. People questioned if it was real. Was she lip-syncing? Was this AI? No, it was pure, raw, unfiltered emotion from a child barely old enough to write a full sentence. She won the competition, of course, but what she really won was the world's obsession. Angelina didn't just hit the notes, she carved them into memory. Her YouTube performances soared past tens of millions of views, and American producers soon came calling. Fast forward to AGT, the champions, and she did it again, delivering Bohemian Rhapsody like it was a smoky torch song from a 1930s jazz club. Her phrasing, tone, and restraint baffled even the most hardened judges. But here's what they didn't see. The weight she carried with every note wasn't from vocal coaching, it came from a story etched in memory, a story that began not on a stage but on a dusty street halfway across the world. Because the real reason Angelina sang barefoot had nothing to do with comfort, and what that story reveals would change how the world saw her forever. To the world, Angelina Jordan's barefoot performances became her signature, an eccentric twist that made her memorable, maybe even marketable. But what millions saw as quirky was actually rooted in a single haunting moment that changed her forever. During a family trip to the Middle East when she was just 6 years old, Angelina encountered a little girl sitting alone on a dusty sidewalk. She had no shoes, no family, no voice. Sight pierced young Angelina in a way even she couldn't explain. They sat together for a few minutes, no cameras, no fans, just two children from different worlds sharing silence and sorrow. The girl had no home, no future, and before Angelina left, she gave her own shoes away. But what she left with was heavier than any pair of sandals. That moment branded her soul. From that day on, Angelina made a vow, a quiet, irreversible promise that she would never again wear shoes while singing. Not because of rebellion, not for branding, but as a living tribute to that forgotten child. Every time she stepped on stage, she was standing in her place, and every time her voice rose, it carried not just melody, it carried memory. Most performers need years of tragedy to inject real emotion into their work. Angelina was barely 6 and already carrying emotional debt most adults can't handle. Her family confirmed the story, but Angelina rarely talked about it publicly. She didn't need to, her bare feet did the talking. For her, music was not just performance, it was protest. It was a way to humanize those we forget, to sing for the voiceless. But with every shoeless step she took toward fame, she also stepped further away from the simple innocence of childhood. Because behind the elegance of her voice and the grace of her presence was a girl who had unknowingly stepped into the spotlight carrying someone else's pain, and it would be years before that weight began to show. But that wasn't the only burden she carried, because what came next was even heavier and far more invisible to the cameras. At an age when most kids are playing with crayons or trading stickers, Angelina Jordan was fielding interview questions about Billie Holiday, performing for royalty, and holding the weight of global adoration in her tiny hands. Fame didn't creep up on her, it ambushed her. One viral clip from Norway's Got Talent turned her into an internet phenomenon overnight. And before the echoes of her haunting rendition of Gloomy Sunday had faded, agents, producers, and media outlets were already knocking, or rather pounding, on her family's door. She was dubbed the Jazz Girl, the Old Soul, the Barefoot Angel. But behind the magazine covers and press tour, the cost of that fame began adding up. There were no breaks, no time to breathe. She was shuffled from interviews to performances, from recording booths to international stages, often with adults she barely knew managing expectations she couldn't understand. Critics praised her control and maturity, but no one stopped to ask how a child so young had learned to suppress her own emotions so flawlessly. She began to smile on cue, answer questions like a seasoned professional, and perform with chilling perfection, all while her classmates were still learning multiplication tables. And the internet, unforgiving as ever, began demanding more. Why doesn't she sing pop? Why is she always so serious? Why is she dressed like that? For a girl who hadn't even hit puberty, Angelina was already being dissected like a product on a shelf. Her identity was no longer her own, it belonged to the narrative others had built around her. Her barefoot vow was misunderstood as a publicity stunt. Her jazz style was labeled too niche by industry execs. And while everyone celebrated the star they had discovered, few noticed the child who was slowly disappearing beneath the spotlight. Even when she graced America's Got Talent, the champions, her maturity and control were so flawless, it almost didn't feel human, and maybe it was. Because at some point she had learned to survive by performing not just songs, but a version of herself the world expected. And as the applause grew louder, so did the silence of a childhood slipping away. But fame wasn't her only challenge, because what came next was something even deeper, a growing sense that no matter how loud she sang, people still weren't truly hearing her. She captivated the room, the crowd was breathless, the judges were starstruck. Yet somehow when the confetti fell, Angelina Jordan's name wasn't called. For millions of viewers who witnessed her spine-chilling version of Bohemian Rhapsody on AGT, the champions, the outcome made no sense. She had the golden buzzer. The internet exploded with praise. So why didn't she win? Theories flooded Reddit threads and YouTube comments. Some believed it was a setup, that the show wanted a surprise underdog victory for drama. Others suggested age politics were at play. Was she too young to be handed the crown twice? Rumors circulated that network executives felt she was too polished, that she lacked the vulnerability or raw unpredictability they could mold. Whispers from behind the scenes hinted that Angelina's refusal to adapt to mainstream trends may have worked against her. No flashy outfits. No viral TikTok gimmicks. No sob story edited for television drama. Just pure talent, and apparently that wasn't enough. Fans were outraged. Accusations of sabotage swirled. Some even speculated that producers feared her jazz style wouldn't generate the kind of record deals or merchandise sales they craved. And while the public cheered her dignity in defeat, very few understood what that loss meant to Angelina. She wasn't bitter, she was broken. After years of carrying the industry's weight and expectations, this felt like the final twist of the knife. It wasn't about trophies, it was about being seen, truly seen. But in an industry that often rewards noise over nuance, her silence spoke volumes. And after that rejection, something changed in her. Because what followed wasn't a comeback, it was a disappearance. One day she was on every screen. The next she was gone, no new releases, no headline performances, no press appearances. It was as if Angelina Jordan had vanished. Fans scoured social media, desperate for updates, but her feeds were cryptic, sporadic posts of poetry, sketches, and quiet reflections. No announcements, no explanations, just silence. For a generation raised on instant updates, this vanishing act was deafening. Rumors spread like wildfire. Had she retired? Was she sick? Had the industry broken her spirit? Some claimed she had gone underground to study music seriously. Others believed she was battling unseen emotional demons, the kind that no stage light can bright. A few conspiracy threads even claimed she'd been blacklisted for refusing to play the game. What no one could confirm, because she never addressed it, was that Angelina was still singing, just not for us. Behind closed doors, she continued to write, to compose, to whisper melodies into notebooks filled with memories. She turned down offers from major labels that wanted to rebrand her. She refused interviews that demanded answers she wasn't ready to give. And while the world called it disappearance, she saw it as healing. For the first time in years, Angelina wasn't performing, she was existing. And while others rushed to the top of charts with auto-tuned hooks and viral dances, she was walking barefoot through her own internal storm, quietly redefining what success meant. But that quiet didn't last forever, because eventually she returned. And when she did, the industry barely recognized her. When Angelina Jordan re-emerged, she wasn't the barefoot child prodigy anymore. She was a young woman with a clear voice, not just in music but in message. Gone were the smoky covers of jazz legends, replaced by original songs with poetic lyrics and raw vulnerability. Labels had tried to sign her for years, offering lucrative deals if she would just tweak her sound, modernize her look, or collaborate with trendy influencers. But she declined, repeatedly. She had enough of being a commodity. She wanted to be an artist. She wanted ownership of her voice, her music, her image. That resistance didn't come without cost. Doors quietly closed. Media coverage faded. Award shows overlooked her. But Angelina was no longer seeking validation from institutions that once misunderstood her. Instead, she focused on creative control. She released music under smaller banners. She directed her own videos. She wrote songs from pain rather than pressure. Fans who stuck with her saw the shift from ghostly jazz child to grounded singer-songwriter with something to say. Her lyrics explored grief, identity, loneliness, and growth. No longer was she echoing the past. She was carving a future, a quieter one, yes, but one that was finally hers. She'd been told for years that her sound was timeless. Now she was determined to prove it didn't belong to any era, it belonged to her. But just when many thought she had faded into obscurity, she released something no one expected. A song so haunting, so honest. It reminded the world exactly why they had fallen in love with her in the first place. It didn't come with fireworks or a reality TV reunion. There was no commercial rollout or industry hype machine. It was just a quiet upload, a dimly lit video, a song called Love Don't Let Me Go. And within minutes it hit like lightning. Angelina Jordan had returned not as a child prodigy but as a full-fledged artist. Her voice, richer and deeper now, carried every ounce of the pain, resilience, and poetry she had lived through in silence. The lyrics didn't beg for attention. They whispered, they wept, they healed. Critics, stunned, began to realize what they had missed. This wasn't just a comeback, it was a statement. The barefoot girl had grown up and she hadn't forgotten a thing. Fans flooded the comments, she's back. She never needed the crown, she was always the queen. Angelina's new work didn't chase trends. It created space for authenticity, for reflection, for artistry in an industry addicted to noise. And while her name may not top Billboard charts next to mainstream giants, her impact is harder to measure. She lives in the hearts of those who needed her quiet strength, her unwavering vision. And with each new release, she reminds the world, sometimes the loudest voices are the ones that never scream, and the most powerful artists are the ones who dare to walk barefoot into the storm. In an industry obsessed with packaging talent into formulas, Angelina Jordan remained the anomaly no one could label. She entered the world stage barefoot, carrying not just a voice far beyond her years, but a quiet defiance wrapped in silk and sorrow. From the very beginning, she was more than a singer. She was a vessel for something deeper, something raw, something painfully real. Her story isn't one of fame or fortune, but of a girl who chose silence over selling out and art over applause. While other contestants chased glittering trophies and fleeting virality, Angelina chose a different path, one that led through heartbreak, identity crises, cultural confusion, and artistic resistance. She was told to fit in and she chose to disappear instead. She was offered the world and she asked for space. And when she finally came back, she didn't roar, she whispered. But somehow the world heard her louder than ever. In the end, her greatest act wasn't a note she sang, but a life she reclaimed, one barefoot step at a time. And as she continues to walk that path, one thing is certain: Angelina Jordan isn't just a talent show memory. She's a quiet revolution in a noisy world. And what she does next might just rewrite the rules for every artist who dares to be different.